Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and subscribers, once again to another episode of Squires Civics and Economics class. Yay! Alright, so today, class, before we jump into today's lesson, we want to make sure that we go back and recap on CE5CE, or I'm sorry, CE5C, which focuses on the roles of media in elections as well as strategies for evaluating campaign advertisements, speeches, political cartoons, and so forth and so on. Um, Again, I just want to make sure I briefly touched on that the importance of evaluating media. The importance of evaluating media is to be able to identify fact from opinion, be able to detect bias, as well as identify propaganda. Those, I think, the most important things that we want to be able to remember, because it's all about understanding the reliability of a source, and you only know that through exercising those particular strategies. Um, and then, as far as the role of media, we know that solely media has a purpose in influencing public policies. And when we think about public policies again, we thought about the rules or laws that are applied to the public or to the people. So, now that we briefly touched on CE5C to make sure we always on the same page, now we're going to go into CE5D, which focuses on the rising campaign costs, or basically evaluating the role of campaign contributions and campaigns costs. The essential understanding we want to remember about um, rising campaign costs in elections is that running for political office can be very, very expensive. Um, and in order to better understand how these rising campaign costs play a role in political parties, let's evaluate those roles now. So, first and foremost, I want you to tell me how many roles does rising campaign costs play in election? So, I'm going to give you a hint. There are a total of, it starts with a F. That's all I'm going to say. Think about it. The total amount of key notes we want to remember about the rising campaign costs is 5 key points. Again, there are 5 key points that we want to remember about the rising campaign costs. The first thing you want to remember about rising campaign costs is that it requires candidates to conduct extensive fundraising activities. The second thing that rising campaign costs does in elections is it limits the opportunities to run for public office. The third key point, it gives an advantage to wealthy individuals who run for office. Again, the third thing you want to remember about rising campaign costs is it gives an advantage to wealthy individuals who run for office. The fourth key point about rising campaign costs is that it encourages the development of political action committees, also known as PACs or super PACs. Then you have the fifth key point about rising campaign costs is that it gives issue-oriented special interest groups increased influence in politics. Now that we've broken down the 5 key points or the 5 characteristics of rising campaign costs, let's break down the 2 key points about campaign finance reforms. So, the 2 things you want to remember about campaign finance reforms is that rising campaign costs have led to reform campaign finance laws. And the second thing you want to remember about rising finance reform is that limits have been placed on the amount individuals may contribute to political candidates and campaigns. However, individuals, businesses, and unions can donate unlimited amounts to PACs or super PACs. For example, Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. Again, this is just allowing individuals, business, and unions can donate unlimited amounts to PACs and super PACs. Got it? Good. So, again, going back and running down the key points that we learned today covering CE5D, the role of campaign contributions and campaign costs. We touched on the 5 key points of rising campaign costs. And again, that was required candidates to conduct fundraising activities. So R, required candidates to conduct extensive fundraising activities. L, limit opportunities to run for public office. G, give an advantage to wealthy individuals who run for office. E, encourage the development of political action committees, also known as PACs or super PACs, and give issue-oriented special interest groups increased influence in politics. Then we touched on the 2 key points of campaign finance reform, which is rising campaign costs have led to efforts to reform campaign finance laws, and limits have been placed on the amount individuals may contribute to political candidates and campaigns. However, individuals, businesses, and unions can donate unlimited amounts to PACs and super PACs. That was a lot to cover, but in the end, as always, it's your loving and energetic, crazy, cool teacher, Mr. Squire. Out. Peace.